The plane's mysterious disappearance had become legend over the years. On a distant icy expedition, Dr. Landon's team unexpectedly found the frozen aircraft, capturing every detail with their cameras. They were filled with excitement, but a sudden sight inside the plane shifted the mood dramatically. The team's minds raced with endless questions and theories as they tried to make sense of the bizarre situation. Little did they know, this discovery was just the beginning of a series of strange and unsettling events that would unfold as they continued their expedition. Something or someone was moving inside the plane, but what could it be? They had no clue what it could be, and Dr. Landon eventually ruled that it might just be a trick of the light, though wholly unsure if that could even be true. He wanted to make this discovery and find out what had happened to the plane. At that time, he had no idea how much danger he was putting his crew in. Despite the doubt in his mind, Dr. Landon couldn't shake off the curiosity that consumed him. He had to know the truth behind the mysterious disappearance of the plane. As they continued on their journey, the atmosphere on the ship became tense and uneasy. The crew members were on edge, constantly looking over their shoulders and whispering amongst each other. Dr. Landon's determination to uncover the truth was admirable, but at what cost? When they eventually entered the aircraft, it had been a haunting sight. Everything was frozen in time. But as part of the crew explored, the other part of the group noticed something truly unsettling. They were confident that this couldn't be a trick of the light. They knew they had to warn Dr. Landon and their other colleagues. They had to escape. However, it seemed that it was too late. As Dr. Landon and his crew ventured a bit deeper into the ice, finding out how the aircraft could have been lodged in place, they couldn't believe what they saw. What had the group come face to face with? What had unsettled the onlookers? And most importantly, would Dr. Landon and his crew be able to get out unscathed? Dr. Landon and his crew had been planning this expedition for months, and now they finally got the green light. The weather was finally deemed safe enough for them to venture. The number of hours of sun had been crucial, so they patiently waited for their day to come. They had no idea that during their wait, the ice would give way to something incredible. It hadn't been seen before by other groups, so when Dr. Landon and his crew got closer to their site, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. A large chunk of ice seemed to have broken off during the winter break. Though that was incredibly sad, they couldn't help but feel amazed by what they saw lying beneath the ice. They even stopped the boat's engine to ensure they could take their pictures without any disturbances. They couldn't believe what they were seeing: a plane lost for at least a decade, now found in the ice. It truly was a remarkable sight. It was something to write home about. Excitement filled them as they knew they would learn more about what had happened all those years ago. Dr. Landon and his crew took a few more photographs of the airplane in the ice, how it seemed to be stuck there, and its sheer size next to the large remaining chunk of ice. However, as they discussed various hypotheses, they had no clue that one of their pictures had captured something that would soon turn their excitement into dread. For now, the crew only knew they had to get closer to the plane. They restarted the engine of the boat. They knew that before even thinking about the possibility of boarding the plane, they had to ensure that under no circumstances would a large piece of ice, and therefore the airplane, fall into the ocean. If that were to happen, the team would be in big trouble. They first had to send out an underwater camera to check how deep the iceberg that the plane was stuck in went. If the iceberg was smaller than the part from which the airplane protruded, there could be a high chance of the ice breaking. They knew they had to be 100% certain, as they wouldn't purposefully endanger human lives. Luckily, after gathering and calculating their findings, they quickly came to a unanimous decision that the ice would be safe to venture into. Though there was never 100% certainty, they were all sure that a sudden break was highly unlikely. As the crew was preparing for their expedition, one of them made a staggering discovery. Dr. Landon's crew member had started to review the photos for their expedition and found something rather staggering in one of them. She had to make sure that she was actually seeing what she thought she was seeing, but when she was sure, she knew that she had to show Dr. Landon. However, as she showed him, all he could think was, how did that end up there? As Dr. Landon looked at the photo, he couldn't believe what he saw. It looked as if something was standing inside the aircraft. Shadows can always happen even in crashed aircraft. It was strange that though multiple pictures were taken, This seemed to be the only time that the shadow could be seen. As they all mulled over what it could be, Dr. Landon ruled that it must have been a trick of the light. Though unsure of his words, his crew decided to follow his lead, even if Dr. Landon was uncertain of his own words. Nevertheless, he couldn't let them notice this. He was their leader, and for this expedition to be successful, they had to examine what had happened to the plane. After all their calculated data, they split the group in half. One part of the group would stay on the boat, calculate and monitor the iceberg, ensuring the other half of the crew wasn't in any mortal danger. The other half of the group who would join Dr. Landon would face something much more challenging. Dr. Landon had brushed it off as being a trick of the light, but deep down inside, he knew that most likely wasn't true. This anomaly meant that he was partially sending in himself and his crew blind. They tried to mimic the pictures they had taken before, trying to catch a glimpse of the shadow. Regardless, nothing of that sort seemed to work. The boat landed on the snowy landscape where one of the institution's buildings was. Though it had to power through the harsh winters year after year, it always stood in good condition. This was a good thing, as Dr. Landon's part of the crew took the snow scooters to go to the airplane stuck in the ice. As they went on their way, Dr. Landon tried to keep an eye out for anything suspicious. But regardless of how much he looked, with everything being a crisp white, he found nothing. The nerves were now starting to get to him, which wasn't helpful in these situations. He had to remain level-headed, but for some reason something just kept gnawing at him. They were nearing the coordinates of the plane, and they could see the watery depths again for the first time in what seemed like a long time. The dark blue starkly contrasted the white snow, but it helped him gather himself once more. "Stop," he suddenly said, as he saw movement. He could have sworn he had seen something in the distance. His colleagues had all stopped on his command, but when they asked him what was wrong and he couldn't pinpoint or explain what he had seen, doubts suddenly started to surface amongst his colleagues. He wanted to put on a brave face, but with the uncertainty of the situation and the strange things he had seen, he was unsure how to do it. It must have been a trick on the eyes, Dr. Landon stated. Maybe it had just been his paranoia over the photo. He gave the green light again for him and his crew to descend down the iceberg in protective gear and check out the crash. He was very curious about how the plane had ended up there and, more importantly, how it had remained undiscovered for all those years. The cold Arctic wind bit at Dr. Landon's team as they descended the glacier. Around them, an endless expanse of white was broken only by the distant crashed plane. Alice, the geologist, whispered, "This place feels untouched, uncharted." Each step on the icy terrain deepened their sense of isolation and wonder. The solitude was almost tangible, adding to the team's trepidation. Closer to the plane, the damage was evident. The hull was brutally torn open, with debris scattered. Joseph, the aircraft expert, noted, "This wasn't a simple crash amidst the wreckage. Peculiar gashes stood out, seeming out of place." Dr. Landon pondered, "These marks don't fit the narrative." A skeptic by nature, he couldn't help but question the seemingly out-of-place marks on the wreckage. As they delved deeper into the investigation, the mystery only deepened, leaving everyone grasping for answers and the truth. What was the true story behind the damaged plane and the strange markings? Only time would tell. Surrounding the plane were mysterious tracks. Emily, the tracker, pointed out, "These tracks are fresh, but who or what made them?" The eroded prints hinted at a presence neither human nor typical wildlife. The snow hid much, but the team's curiosity grew. They were determined to understand. The plane's exterior told another story. Alongside crash scars were odd scratches, seemingly deliberate. Joseph observed, these weren't caused by the crash or weather. Alice suggested, perhaps wild encounters. Dr. Landon inspected closer, sure of a deeper meaning behind them. As the team set up camp, they discussed their findings: an old crash, recent tracks, and these scratches. Dr. Landon began, "They hint at intertwined mysteries," Emily added. "It's as if this place holds layers of history." The crew sensed that the plane and its surroundings concealed deeper secrets. Their quest for answers had only just begun. After the day's unsettling findings, Dr. Landon's crew approached the damaged entrance of the plane. Hinges frozen in place required tools to break through. "We're about to step into history," murmured Joseph as they geared up. Tension permeated the air. They were on the verge of discovering stories long trapped in ice. The overhead light pierced the shadowed interior, revealing a haunting tableau. Meal trays lay toppled, drinks spilled mid-flight, and magazines half open. Time seemed to have stood still, capturing an interrupted journey. Emily whispered. "It's like a moment frozen forever," the weight of the past pressed on them, palpable in every preserved detail. Walking through the aisle, the crunch of frost underfoot was deafening in the hushed cabin. Alice, touching a seatbelt left fastened, murmured, "Someone sat here." They had dreams, hopes. Each step resonated with echoes of conversations, laughter, and life that once filled the space. The team felt surrounded by the spectral presence of past passengers. As they delved deeper, personal possessions emerged from the snow drifts: a child's toy, books, a pair of glasses, letters never delivered. Joseph held up a diary, its pages stiff with cold. They're all storytellers in their own right. These artifacts spoke volumes, wordless testimonies of lives in mid-flight abruptly halted. Gathering around the campfire later, the crew shared their reflections. "It's more than just a crash site," Dr. Landon stated, looking at the plane's silhouette against the twilight. "It's a monument to those aboard." Emily added, "A snapshot of a bygone era." They pondered the mysteries that led these souls to their frozen eternity. Their quest for answers deepened, resonating with respect and remembrance. Evening settled around them, and as the crew ventured further into the wreckage, the biting cold wasn't the only thing sending shivers down their spines. Faint noises, whispers almost, seemed to dance around them, playing tricks on their ears. "Is it the wind?" Alice questioned, her voice tinged with anxiety. Dr. Landon signaled for silence, pressing his ear against the icy interior wall. The sporadic, almost melodic sounds were undeniable. It's like voices." Joseph breathed, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. The team exchanged nervous glances, each wrestling with the dawning realization that they might not be alone. Dividing into pairs, the team began a meticulous sweep, hunting for the source of the unsettling whispers. Every shadow, every fallen piece of debris, held potential significance. Emily and Joseph moved towards the rear of the plane, while Dr. Landon and Alice veered towards the cockpit. Their torchlights flickered, amplifying the palpable tension. The further Emily and Joseph delved, the clearer the sounds became. A chorus of hushed tones rose from the depths, reverberating through the frost-covered walls. "It's coming from here," Joseph whispered, pointing towards a concealed compartment beneath a collapsed row of seats. Their heartbeats thundered in their ears, mirroring the intensity of the growing chorus. Gathered once more, the crew recounted their discoveries. "Do you think these sounds could be related to that shadow in the photos?" Alice pondered aloud. Dr. Landon stared deeply into the darkness, his expression contemplative. "There's a piece of this puzzle we're missing," he mused. The events of the day weighed heavily on their minds, shadows of suspicion cast over their quest for answers. With resolute determination, Dr. Landon led the crew through the claustrophobic corridors of the plane. Every step echoed with history, and anticipation built with each twist and turn. The further they ventured, the more the weight of what transpired on the plane pressed upon them. Finally, the cockpit door loomed before them, a silent sentinel guarding untold secrets. Upon opening it, they were met with a scene that took their breath away. Controls and instruments were eerily locked in place, preserved in their final moments. Frozen switches, levers pulled to their limits, and dials indicating chaos painted a haunting picture of desperate attempts to avert catastrophe. In the dim light, the glow of a cracked communication screen caught their attention. Displayed was the final message, its meaning veiled in obscurity, descending into the unknown. The words seemed to reverberate around the cockpit, amplifying the chilling atmosphere. What had the pilots seen? What did they mean? Joseph, spotting a slightly ajar compartment, reached in to retrieve the plane's black box. The team's hope rested on this device, anticipating that its recordings would shed light on the plane's final hour. "This could have the answers," Dr. Landon murmured, holding the black box delicately, aware of the gravity of the find. As the crew left the wreckage, excitement faded to contemplation. Uncovering clues, they pondered the flight's true fate. The icy winds whispered, deepening the plane's mystery. Back on the boat, relief turned to trepidation. Equipment glitched, tension mounted. Dr. Landon ordered a system check urgently. During a scan, a crew member spotted a white figure near the plane. It vanished, leaving them perplexed. Sightings increased, dividing the crew. Some dismissed them, others believed in spirits. Rational minds struggled with the unexplained. Equipped with binoculars, they searched for the figure but found nothing, still hoping for another glimpse. As night fell, debates erupted. Some rationalized, others sensed a deeper mystery. Fact blurred with fiction. Morning revealed anomalies around the wreckage. Dr. Landon found fresh imprints, unsettling the team. They noticed strange marks, sparking eerie tension. Speculation swirled about surviving passengers or something darker. Fractures near the plane hinted at recent activity. The site's tranquility wavered, challenging its relic status. With care they explored, uncovering makeshift shelters and signs of recent life. The plane held tales beyond its tragic past. Curious tracks led to dead ends, fueling debates. Were they from lost explorers or something stranger? Discoveries deepened the mystery. Whispers of ghostly passengers or unsolved mysteries filled the air. A cave entrance intrigued Dr. Landon. Could it hold answers or more secrets? The crew descended, finding signs of recent habitation. They realized they weren't alone. Deeper, they found a concealed alcove with artifacts hinting at a prolonged stay. The mystery deepened. Hope mingled with fear as they pressed on, driven to uncover the cave's truth. Sensing danger, Dr. Landon called for backup. The crew prepared for a potential encounter. As they ventured, they felt watched, hearing whispers in the dark. The radio crackled with urgency. Their hearts raced as they neared the unknown. A polar bear blocked their path, with cubs behind her. The crew retreated, awed by the bear's presence. They understood they were trespassers. Back on the boat, they reflected on the encounter. They respected nature's power and mysteries. Examining evidence, they realized the bear had been following them. Fear mingled with fascination. Playing the black box, they relived the tragic descent. Bravery and sacrifice echoed in the cockpit's final moments. Their Arctic journey unveiled life and history. The crew bid farewell, forever changed by their discoveries.